Have you ever had thoughts like, I don't have time to focus on losing weight because otherwise I might miss my chance of having a baby? Or it will take so long for me to get to my ideal weight that I might as well just give up. And perhaps if you're listening to this, you may have even thought to yourself, oh gosh, why is it that I'm not losing weight when I'm doing all the things that I need to be doing? Well, if you've ever had any of those thoughts, today's Ask Gabriela Rosa Live is definitely for you, because I'll be absolutely busting down some myths and helping you get a great head start into what it is that's going to help you change that once and for all. Hello and welcome. I'm Gabriela Rosa. I'm a fertility specialist and, of course, the founder of the Rosa Institute. And, of course, for the last 2 decades, I have helped couples overcome infertility and miscarriage, even when other treatments have failed. And we know very clearly that weight and weight loss and weight, shift difficulties is really such a big part of what keeps some couples away from creating the ultimate outcome that they're looking for in terms of having a baby. And we've even done some trials in our own practice to be able to actually come up with some ideas as to how to change that once and for all. So today is all about making sure that you have the clarity that you need and all the things that you need to understand to change it once and for all. Now, one of the things that is important and that I would love to be able to help you understand is that it's not so much about what it is that you eat, how you exercise, and whatever else, what supplements you may take that will help you actually achieve your outcome. I know that it seems like, oh my God, how is she saying that? Of course, you need to eat well. Of course, you need to make sure that you're doing all of the things that are going to give you the best possible foundation to a healthy baby. Those things are granted, right? So they're almost like, they're obvious. But what a lot of people don't understand is that in order to actually make a difference in this particular situation, in being able to lose weight, and not only just lose weight, but drop the weight that you want and keep it off, is actually all to do with mindset. So we're going to talk about that and that piece as well. The one thing that I often, hear in my practice, and there's many different things and many different ways in which people, approach this conversation. Sometimes patients come to us and they're really upset and really disgruntled about this conversation that they've had with their doctor or another fertility specialist or whoever. And the conversation went something in the lines of, just go away, lose weight, come back, right? Without much more of, kind of explanation, insight, understanding, or guidance as to what it is that that person needs to do in order to do that. Has that ever happened to you? I would love to know, actually, in the comments, and I would love to say hi. I haven't even said hi. Gosh, I've taken a little bit of a break from our Ask Gabriela Rosa events because of the fertility challenge that we've just run, and it feels like forever since I've done one of these, but it's awesome to be able to connect with you guys again and to be able to, come in here and give you some extra insights on things that will absolutely help you be further forward on your fertility journey. So thank you for joining me. And even if you're watching this on the replay, there will be some ideas here that I think will really help you understand how you can start taking charge of what needs to happen and the change that you want to make. And I want to acknowledge you too, because, gosh, it's so difficult. I mean, going through the journey of infertility and miscarriage and everything that, that whole reproductive challenge or difficulties entails is already difficult, and when we then have an extra layer, and no pun intended, of complication when it comes to weight loss, that definitely, or excess weight, that definitely is something that we need to take into consideration. It can become even more disheartening. It can become, because it's that feeling of, oh, gosh, like no matter what I do, no matter what I try, it just, nothing seems to work. It just seems to be all the same all the time. And, am I ever going to be able to do this? And then there's that kind of feeling of guilt and, and really it's not going to be ideal, for you to kind of be, and I totally get that it's hard not to beat yourself up, right, on this journey. It just always is. But the reality is that beating yourself up isn't going to give you a baby, okay? So I think that we need to get some really great clarity around the fact that, we need to be able to look at things for what they are and to acknowledge that, yes, we might have an issue, but that doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't make you a bad person because you're struggling with this issue. Like, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and a lot of people don't really know the very specific things that will help them and move them in the right direction. So that's really what we want to talk about today. And good on you for not giving up. Good on you for knowing deep down, and I know that there is this huge sense of like, oh my God, is there anything else? And yes, there is. But also good on you for not giving up and for walking closer toward your outcome and creating a dream, as opposed to basically just, putting your hands up in the air and going, oh, whatever, what will be, will be. What will be, will be. For my patients, I have seen over the years, doesn't deliver babies, right? Taking charge, on the other hand, does. And so hence why I'm so pro, making sure that we do everything we possibly can, because for everything else, we just need to accept what is. But there are areas, and this is definitely one of them, where you can absolutely do more. And knowing what's going to help you get that result is what changes everything. So today is all about that. Lots of questions that I get in terms of this particular topic, and I'll read them just briefly, just so that you guys have a little bit of an understanding in terms of, kind of the encompassing conversation that we're going to have around this. So what impact does being overweight or obese actually have on my fertility? A lot of people don't understand this. And this is often very poorly explained, in those very quick, brief conversations with most IVF specialists. It's kind of like, go away, lose weight, come back, and that's that. There isn't a deeper explanation as to why it's important. And even though I am going to talk a little bit about that today, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on there, because I want to make sure that I give you very specific strategies and tools that you can implement. And what I will also do is I'll make available a handout for you that outlines, all of the impact. Already, we've created an infographic about this that you will find on naturalfertilitybreakthrough.com. If you go to the blog, you will actually find a whole series of infographics in there that definitely are going to help to enlighten you as to what is out in the scientific literature and research around certain topics that we talk about. And weight loss, and I guess excess weight and obesity is definitely one of them. So in terms of understanding the problem, suffice to say that, yes, it's an issue, right? Suffice to say that it's going to impact sperm health. It's going to impact egg quality. It's going to impact ovulation, regularity of cycles. It's definitely going to impact the success of IVF, the rates of success, of IVF success. And so when someone or an IVF doctor might say to you, go away, come back, they're actually doing you a service, even though they may not be doing it in the way that you would like it to be done, which is with some further explanation and some understanding. But they're actually really doing you a service, because what happens is that if you are excessively overweight or obese, then what's going to happen is that even though you might go through the whole cycle, it's very unlikely, the research shows that it's very unlikely that a baby will actually come out of that intervention. And also, and again, this is all in the handout and the infographic, so you'll be able to actually explore all of those factors a whole lot more. But also what ends up happening is that the impact that it has, that being overweight has on the egg and the sperm, are almost kind of like only just the tip of the iceberg of the actual real problem. Because the real problem then becomes, if a woman does conceive, the impact that it will have to her own health during a pregnancy, and of course the impact that it will have on the health of that prospective child. And we now know that there's a lot of evidence, and I'm talking like in the tunes of like millions of people who have gone through different types of treatments and cycles. You know, there was a study that was done, and I'm actually just looking for the reference here because it blew me away, it blew my mind when a systematic review in 2019, there you go, involving 12,324 cases and 7,919,288 participants suggests that maternal obesity and overweight increase the risk of cerebral palsy in the offspring. Now, the hypothesis as to why this is the case in terms of obesity, it's not yet fully understood. However, the reality is that with those kinds of numbers, almost 8 million patients, we know that this is a big impact, right? And we know that we need to do more. And certainly, you know, when it comes to the health of a child, obese parents will negatively impact the health of a baby, not only from the perspective direct impacts, but also we now are very clear about the fact that if parents are overweight, and whether it's the mother or the father, will both have an impact. If parents are overweight, when at the time of conception, obviously also during pregnancy for the mother, that child is much more likely to develop cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, you know, all of those big risk factors later in their life and in their lifetime, which will, you know, they will carry with them for their entire life. So in order to be able, and again, this is no guilt trip, right? So let's be very pragmatic. And I bring these things to you. I bring these pieces of information and understanding for you so that you can actually understand what it is that the impact is, look at it, go, okay, what can I do about it? And then we move forward. So there's no need for judgment, self or otherwise, right, in terms of where you are right now. The key is making choices and adjusting the way that perhaps you do things to change the outcome and the result down the track, right? But lots of times I get asked this, you know, what is the impact of obesity and overweight on fertility? Does excess weight impact sperm chromosomes? I've already kind of gave a little bit of a giveaway there. I've tried to lose weight, but nothing seems to work. How do I overcome this? You know, will my weight impact IVF and the success of IVF outcomes? Again, kind of answered that one in advance. What classifies overweight and obesity? That's a really good question. And there are some very specific measures. And BMI, you know, body mass index really isn't one. Waist to hip ratio definitely is a better measure, right? But also waist circumference is going to be much more informative, because what happens is, if we know that for women, we want the waist circumference to be below 85 centimeters, sorry for all the other metric systems around the world. I only do centimeters and you know, kilos and liters. So, but you know, we know that 85 centimeters around the waist for women, below that is what's ideal. And then we also know that for men, it's under 90 centimeters. So you can always Google 90 centimeters into inches and you will find your answer, or whatever centimeters into inches that you'll find. If you also Google hip to waist ratio, you will find very easily how to calculate that for yourself, right? It's a much better measure in terms of ideal weight than you will basically have in the usual kind of way that this gets reported and measured and looked at by, you know, standard therapy. So you're going to certainly want to understand what that is. But remember one thing, and I think that this is a really crucial part of the understanding, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit in more detail in a moment, which is this idea that it's really easy to want to give up when you think, oh my God, I need to lose 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 kilos, right? Or however many kilos you may need to drop. It's very easy to feel like, oh, it just feels too overwhelming. It feels too hard. The reality is that there have been studies that show that sometimes when you are over 100 kilos, and this is for the female, and I'm sure there have been other studies done since, but on men as well. But I know specifically, and this was a very great finding actually, that if you are over 100 kilos, 10% body weight drop is actually enough to get a woman to start cycling again and ovulating again, right? Which obviously also has a very positive impact on other aspects of reproduction and other aspects of health, right? So what happens here is that as much as we want to be focused, and I've had to learn this personally the hard way. I've gone through my own journey, over the last 2.5 years in terms of this. So I know that it's not necessarily easy, but it's definitely possible. And what happens is that when we're focused on, the end result, like, oh, I want to drop 20 kilos or 30 kilos or whatever it might be, right? It's so easy to just go, oh, it just feels too hard. And the chocolate bar in front of you right now feels infinitely more attainable as a goal than, the 20 or 30 kilos that you want to drop on the scales. And so then we start to kind of make choices that don't support what it is that we want to achieve in the long term. So sometimes what we need to really focus on is actually the journey. I know it's very painful, and I hate that. I'm very biased. I'm very results biased, and I'm very biased towards outcome, right? But my patients benefit from that a lot. I sometimes not so much, because there is that pressure that I put on myself to just kind of make sure that I'm getting my result, getting my outcome. And sometimes we kind of it's very easy to forget that enjoying that walk in the park today, enjoying, people laughing at me. I know it's terrible, but you know what I mean, right, Marika? It's one of those things. But yeah, so what happens is that when we know what it is that we need to do and we don't do it, there are things that are getting in the way. Sometimes we don't even know what it is that we need to be doing. But sometimes what happens, and the biggest thing that gets in the way, it's that idea that I have to be there already, right? And that's why also people get really impatient on the fertility journey, because what happens is that especially when it's been a long-standing journey, over 2 years, 10 years, 15 years, as we've got many of the patients in our practice come to us in those types of circumstances and situations, it's so easy to become impatient. It's so easy to just go, oh God. And sometimes it's so easy to just feel like, what is the point? I'm just going to give up, right? But giving up never gets you closer to achieving or creating a dream. Never. So that's where we need to kind of balance out that idea of enjoying the journey with the idea of getting to the destination. No different here, right? But that whole situation of, where it is that you need to get to is useful, but it's not everything. So just be aware that sometimes just by doing what it is that you're doing, that is going to help you balance your biochemistry, is going to then obviously support weight loss, and is going to actually help to improve your reproductive outcomes, even when you don't get to your ideal weight necessarily, right? So this is much more about the process and focusing on the things that we can control versus the things that we have absolute no control over. Right? You can't control the fact that if you jump on your scale, you're going to see a certain number on that scale. However, in that moment, you can't control it, right? However, you can control putting your joggers on and going for a walk, going to the gym, doing some weights training, doing, anything that is going to help you to move. You can control how you choose to nourish yourself and nourish your body. I read a quote the other day on Pinterest. I have like this board of wisdom and motivational quotes that I add to literally practically on a daily basis, mostly for my own purposes, right? Because I like to stay connected to what drives me. And so I saw this one the other day that said something along the lines of, you don't eat well and exercise because you hate your body. You do it because you love it, or you do it because you want the best for it, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it very badly, but basically the whole idea of that is that let's shift the mindset of weight and dropping weight and weight loss from a punishment perspective, right? Of, oh my God, I can't eat this, therefore I'm going to be punishing myself, to a okay, I choose to do this to nourish myself, right? I think, doesn't that make a big difference in the way in which, we kind of perceive that whole situation? And for me, at least, it drives me in a different way. It makes me understand that, well, actually, I'm doing this because I want the best for myself, not because I'm punishing myself. And that really, for me anyway, it has worked brilliantly. So I hope that that's something that you can kind of start to integrate in your own situation. But again, we're going to come back to our very practical tips, and our very specific things that you can do. Let's just go back through the list of questions that I normally get, and we'll go from there. I hope this is helping. I hope that you kind of, getting a sense. And by the way, I mean, isn't this the most perfect time to be doing this talk? Thanksgiving, USA. By the way, happy Thanksgiving. I am grateful and very, very thankful for you guys and this beautiful community. So, and very grateful to be able to be here and be a support on your journey as well. So that's my happy Thanksgiving message for today. So another question that I often get, I have hypothyroidism and I can't lose weight. Can you help? Can my weight be the reason why my cycles and ovulation is irregular? We've answered that already, right? What is the impact of a prospective parent being overweight and or obese on the health of a child? Again, we've answered that in the beginning of this session, so just go back to there if you've just joined me. Is there an optimal weight that we need to be at in terms of fertility? And again, I don't really go by the scales in terms of this, right? We want to see the biochemistry. We want to see the shifts there. We want to make sure that we are addressing any insulin resistance that can happen and certainly be exacerbated by excess weight. We want to make sure that we've got all of our other hormones working effectively, because ultimately that's going to make a very big difference to not only the ability to drop weight and maintain it, but also the ability to improve egg quality, sperm quality, and of course the health of a child in the long term. So the weight itself, even though it can be a measure and it can be useful, right? It can kind of help you track things. It's not so much where I would be focusing. I would be focusing on waist measurement circumference, on hip to waist ratio, as I've mentioned earlier in this talk today. And then, of course, there's another question here, losing weight. It will take me so long and I feel that I'm running out of time. Do you have any tips? Well, do I ever? So let's get straight into it. I think that, one of the big things, always, I like to make sure that I focus on the 20% of the effort that's going to give us 80% of our result. And today, there's really 3 big ideas that will help you get to that situation, or at least to that understanding. The very first one is that nothing will ever happen. Nothing out there ever changes until I change, right? So first, for things out there to change, first I must change, and that is to do with mindset. It is amazing the difference and the impact of getting your head right in terms of this particular situation and in terms of this particular topic. Because you know what? The time will pass anyway. It really will, right? So either you're going to be walking and moving closer to your goal and to your outcome and to, the objective that you've set for yourself, or you're going to be staying stuck or going around in circles or going the other way, right? So here's the decision point that you need to make. Even though you might not make fast progress, progress is progress, right? It does not matter how quick or how slowly you make progress, as long as you start to train yourself. How do you get good at something? The way you get good at something is you do it, right? And every time that you're off track, you come back on track. It's that whole idea that a rocket on its way to the moon is only ever on course 3% of the time, and the rest of the time it's course correcting. And if that's the case, and if that's true, and I've proven that to be true in my own life, right? If that is, let's just pretend that we choose that we're going to make that to be true, then what does it mean? Well, it means that you're never going to be perfect. It means that, trying to be perfect is a waste of time. And that as long as we're focused on moving closer to the goal, closer to the outcome, and that we focus on that on a day by day situation. And sometimes we have to focus on it hour by hour. You know, I know what it feels like to want to have chocolate more than anything else in the entire universe, planet Earth. Don't even worry about that, but the entire universe, right? And literally telling myself or having to coach myself through that process. Like, I love chocolate. What can I say? I mean, it's the best, it's food of the gods, right? It's absolutely everything that one could ever wish for. But beside the point, I digress. Don't get me started thinking about chocolate, because I'll be here talking about Verona and, you know, all sorts of great things. So let's not do that right now. But what we will do is let's break that down, right? Don't expect perfection, because perfection is really the problem here, is that we think that, you know, I have to eat perfectly every single day, every single time, every single, you know, if I'm going to achieve my outcome. And if I don't, then what happens? I just go ahead and start eating all sorts of things that are not actually in my best interest because I blew it anyway. What's the point? Let's just say this. There is a point. There's always a point. Right? And just because your last meal wasn't perhaps the very best that you could have, you know, very best choice you could have made, you can make a better choice next time, i.e. your very next meal or the very next thing that you put into your mouth. But the reality is that that decision comes out of a set of beliefs that we have or that we don't have when it comes to getting to this outcome, getting to this idea of what it is that you want to create, or what it is that you want to change, or what it is that you want to improve. What ends up happening very frequently is that in order for us to actually transform a result, we have to believe that we can. We have to believe that it's at least worth trying. Fair? I mean, let me know, when was the last time that you did anything? I'd love to hear on the comments. When was the last time that you achieved something that you absolutely thoroughly believed that, no, there is no way that's ever going to happen? Probably never, because guess what? You wouldn't even try, right? You wouldn't even get off the gate if you thought that there is absolutely no way that something can be done. You're not going to focus there. Right? So this is the reality. The reality is that we need to start changing the way in which we look at this whole situation. Mindset is going to be the absolute key. And that comes with training, right? Comes with training. Every time that you tell yourself that you can't do it, you say, but actually, you know what? I think that I might want to give it a really good shot. Right? I might want to give it a really good go. And, or, you know, starting to look for evidence in other areas of your life where you have done something that before you thought was difficult and now has become easy, or that you've been able to manage, or that you've been able to do simply because you didn't give up, right? Like, how many times, how many people can today ride bicycle, swim, you know, walk, do all of these types of things that once we never knew how to do? But then, you know, you developed a skill and you practiced that skill and you became better at that skill. And then all of a sudden we have a different result where in the beginning it wasn't possible. It was something that, you know, you had never done before, and now it is. Like, the key thing here is to understand that the process of doing strengthens the muscle for doing. Okay, so how do we actually get even deeper into that layer of the drive to want to do it? And that's, I'm going to give you you might want to have pen and paper actually, because you might want to write some things down as I'm going to go and talk about some of the things that you can do. There's some fabulous exercises that will really help you to get clarity on this. But one of the biggest things that has helped me in my life, and I'm going to share that with you because it might help you on yours. I made a decision, right, very early on in my life, that I was going to be the person who kept going until I got my outcome, until I got my result. Not if I got my result. How many times, how many people have you ever talked to? And I've talked to thousands, let me tell you, who basically would not try unless they have an absolute guarantee of success. what happened, like in life, when do you ever have 100% guarantee of success in anything, right? Anything. I mean, you can get out of bed today and, you know, something might happen that you never expected. And so the reality is there is no guarantee. The only guarantee is to back yourself up and choose the belief that is going to support and drive you towards your outcome. For me, that belief has been everything. And I've applied it to many areas of my life, right? To the point that, you know, now for me, it's very easy. I know that eventually I will get my outcome no matter what. I know that if I start and I'm consistent and not perfect, please do not misunderstand me when I say I am the least perfect person you will ever meet. In fact, I'm the best of times, chaotic and intense and, you know, all over the place. And, you know, yet there are some very specific things that I focus on that enable me to have results in the areas of my life that matter to me. Okay. And so ultimately, the most important thing for you is to decide what are the pieces of this journey that I need to focus on that matter to me and that I'm going to be consistent on. And sometimes it's a matter of starting with one thing. One thing. Because if you think that you're going to do 10 things, guess what? You're probably not going to do one. So just pick one. Pick the, like, think in terms of, I always like to think, as I said before, in terms of what's the 20% of the effort that's going to give me 80% of my result. And then I can fine tune and tweak that, right? I can repeat that. I can go at that again. I can focus on it in a way that enables me to, again, make progress. But that progress does not happen outside of a shift in mindset, right? Outside of a shift in starting to believe that who do you need to become, actually, is the question. Who do you need to become in order to actually achieve your goal, your outcome, whatever it is? It might be, obviously, in this case, we're talking about weight loss, but, you know, who do I need to become in order to conquer whatever challenges I'm faced with, right? And that is then what you need to kind of figure out in your mind, and then we work backwards from there. This is no different. This is no different. Fertility challenges and overcoming fertility challenges when everything else hasn't worked is no different. It requires that level of determined action. That's really what it comes down to. Determined action gets you your results, not because it's easy, not because it's impossible, definitely, right? But because, hey, let's just stay consistent and see where we get to. This is one of those very, very best places. And you see, as humans, we've got like this default setting that, you know, is literally, it drives everything that we do. We either do things because they take us toward pleasure or they take us away from pain. The biggest thing that humans do is they will do anything to avoid pain. It's even greater than pleasure is the need to avoid pain. What we do typically as human beings, think about it. People fight infinitely harder. What would you fight harder for? If you had $20,000, right, in your bank account, would you fight harder to make someone to, you know, not let somebody steal it from you and prevent someone from stealing it from you than you would to actually make $20,000? Most people would say yes. Most people would fight harder to protect the money that they've made, you know, the $20,000 that they've got in their account, than they would to actually make another $20,000, right? So as humans, we have this default setting, and it's important to understand this because this drives weight loss more than you will ever know. Because what happens is that we will fight much harder for the status quo, to maintain the status quo, to maintain the need for, you know, avoiding displeasure, then we will for the feeling that we'll get sometime down the track eventually of pleasure because of something that we've had to do. Like, think about it, right? If we put it in context of food, the chocolate bar in front of you definitely gets a whole heap more attention than, you know, the bikini body that you want to have 2.5 years from now. It's closer, it's there, it's right now. That gratification, that pleasure is there. So what do we do? What do we do to address this, because that is one of the big perils on this journey. You know, it's looking at what's in front of you and going, okay, I'm going to choose something different because I want that outcome down the track. And if I choose this now, I'm going to be walking the other way rather than towards what it is that I want. But having this understanding that everything we do is either designed to move us towards pleasure or toward pleasure and away from pain helps us to start to identify some of the habits perhaps that we have developed over time and that we embark upon on our daily basis that negatively impact the way in which we actually arrive at our results, right? And whether we do it faster or you know, more slowly. Now, again, like I said before, the faster or more slowly, it will be up to you. However, on the fertility journey, that can count. That can count a lot, because if you can actually drop 10 kilos in 2 months, which is very reasonable, right? But you decide that you take 1 year to do that, well, obviously that's going to negatively impact your chances. So looking at every single possibility of what you can do to drive yourself is going to be key. So I'm going to give you an exercise to do now that is absolutely going to change the way in which you see this whole picture, this whole way of approaching the situation, and that will help you move further forward towards your outcome by looking at, 1, what is it costing you to stay where you are? And 2, what is it that you're going to gain? Now, in the Fertility Challenge, if you've ever done any of my events, and especially the Fertility Challenge, you will see that I give different types of exercises, mindset exercises, to really help to shift, right, different belief systems and different things towards the outcome that you're wanting to create, which is a healthy baby. Here, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to simplify, very much simplify this exercise, but it's still going to be just as effective if you do it, right? And here's what it is. You get a piece of paper and a pen. In fact, you'll probably need many pieces of paper, but you get your paper and your pen, and what you're going to do is you're going to write down on the top 200 reasons. In fact, I like to put it on a piece of paper, put a line in the middle, and then on the left-hand side, I have 200 costs or drawbacks of staying where I am, right? Of basically being overweight, or, you know, staying where you are in terms of what it is that's not working for you, and 200 benefits and, you know, yeah, I guess 200 benefits and improvements to my life by actually changing, right? By becoming the person or doing the thing that's going to actually make a difference. So those 2 columns are actually designed to help you to understand what is it that it's costing you and what it is that you're going to gain by making the change. The cost part is the part where, you know, we want to avoid pain. So what happens is the more that you write on there, so cost, and by the way, you want to do this for every area of your life. Physical, emotional, financial, relationship-wise, family-wise, career-wise. You want to link as many things as you possibly can to the cost of choosing to continue to stay where you are right now. So the cost of not losing weight, the cost of being and staying overweight, like all of those, and the drawbacks of that. So the way that you do it and the way that you get to 200 is actually really easy. And by the way, the reason that I say 200, right, is because in order to have cognitive shifts, you have to dig deep, right? You have to absolutely stack the odds in your favor here. And that's how you do it, by writing down literally at least 200 things. And sometimes people get to more than 200. But this is how you do it. Let's say, for example, that one of the costs is that you won't be able to have a baby, right? Or that you will stay infertile, that you will continue to have miscarriages, or that you will, and you see the languaging here is very important, because the more pain, I know that it sounds terrible, but the more pain you experience in writing down your costs, the more you are going to be driven to move away from them towards pleasure. Right? So you want to look at it for really what it is. And it might be difficult. And sometimes, you know, I've done this exercise many times before for many different things, because you can apply it for many different things. Whenever I do this exercise and I do it properly, honestly, I need a box of tissues, and I use up a whole lot of them. right? Because it's painful to look at what it is that we're doing and how it's not serving us, and how if we don't choose to do things differently, we're going to lose big time, right? And that's not the way that I'm talking about. So really, it's about getting clarity and connecting with the real cost of our choices and our decisions, because when we do, it makes us move. And that is ultimately what you need in order to get to your outcome. You know, like I always say, this is the diagram that I created this for Fertility Breakthrough, the book. Most people continue going around in circles for a really long time until, unfortunately, eventually they run out of time, right? Progress as indirect, you know, it would be lovely if we could have this in a direct line from beginning to baby. It's never possible, right? And as indirect as it may be, giving up is never going to get you there, right? It's never going to get you closer. But finding ways, strategies, tools that are going to move you from here to there, even if it's imperfectly, is better than staying where you are. So this is one that I absolutely highly recommend. Take the holiday, right? For those of you in the US, you've got a couple of days. So in fact, it's a 4-day weekend. So take the time, go through it, and go through the exercise. And for everyone else around the world, the weekend is coming up. Do it. Right? Sit down, commit to putting down on paper all of those costs. And you know what you want to do is you want to find out the costs of the costs. That's how it's very easy to get to 200. Because if you go, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to never have a baby. What's the cost of that? Why is that a problem? 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 You know, then basically it's going to be unpacking all of the things that are within that initial consideration that will get you to move. Right? This is what it's about. It's getting you to move. And then, of course, the 200 benefits, you want to do the same thing. So how am I going to benefit in every area of my life? Physically, emotionally, financially, relationship-wise, career-wise, you know, you name it, right? You want to make sure that you put it all down and you do the same thing. So I'm going to have more energy. How is that going to benefit you? How is that going to benefit you? How's that going to benefit you? And then you just keep writing that down. And honestly, you want to keep those lists, okay? You want to keep those lists because you will need to go through them. There'll be times that chocolate bar is going to be calling to you, right? Or whatever your poison of choice is. And I say poison, but really, I'm actually joking. But, you know, it's actually going to be calling, you know, the thing that you want that you know is not going to give you the long-term result is definitely going to be there. And so you need to actually strengthen yourself by revisiting these lists, because you will revisit those lists and you will revisit and strengthen your resolve towards what it is that you want to create. So that is the ultimate key. Do the lists and keep them. And to begin with, you know, for the first few months, I would recommend actually going through them every single day, going through it multiple times a day if you have to. Take pictures of them, put it on the, you know, cover photo of your phone so that it's there all the time. Like, I have a goal right now that I want my 6-pack. So I don't have my phone here with me. Oh, actually, I'm using my phone to do the live stream on Instagram. So I can't show you. But, you know, on my phone right now, there's a photo of a 6-pack. Actually, it's J-Lo's 6-pack. Nobody, you know, else's. It's J-Lo's, very specific. So, you know, it's on there. So I look at it every single time that I pick up my phone, 10,000 times a day. I've got it on there. Okay, this is my goal. So it connects me to the outcome. And by the way, whatever your goal is, right? Like, I mean, for me, like I said, I've been going through this journey for a hell of a long time, you know, for like 2.5 years already. And so it basically, you know, we're all at different stages of the journey. But when I started, like after I had kids, I had 30 kilos to lose, right? 30 kilos. It's like, you know, it's substantial. Right. And so, and I'm pretty close to, I think that, you know, I'm about 2 or 3 kilos away from the goal that I had set. Right. And so what happens is that by focusing on and visiting and revisiting these ideas, you will be able to actually get to the place that you want to go. So this is crucial, right? You cannot do this without the mindset piece. Honestly, if you try, and you will fail if you do it without it, you will get very disappointed. You will get very disheartened. And above all, you know what else is going to happen? You're going to probably want to give up, and you probably will give up because you don't have that foundation that drives you, right? So it's key, very key to get the mindset piece right and to actually put it in place. So doing that exercise is something that I would absolutely recommend. So that's idea number one. And I wanted to really spend the time that it needed on that idea, because honestly, without it, you can put in place all of the other things. You can eat really healthily for the whole week, and then on the weekend you just go and eat everything under the sun, and you'll just put on all the weight that you've managed to kind of succeed through during the week in a couple of days, right? And then you just keep going around this very unpleasant circle. And then guess what happens with that? Then we start to tell ourselves all sorts of nasty things, right? That you would never tell another human being, but you tell yourself. I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that, I'll never be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to, you're in your own head, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But ultimately, when you have this piece and you have this piece nailed, let me tell you right now, this will be a different experience for you, okay? But it takes consistency and it takes conditioning. Remember what I said in the very beginning. It doesn't just happen. You don't build muscles overnight. Like, it takes time. It takes time. It takes getting in there, doing the thing, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to. And that is how you get your ultimate result, okay? This is no different. So just that conditioning and that consistency is going to be key. What I also recommend is that the thing about this is that you need to plan for your little bits of enjoyment in terms of food. And all of your foods should be enjoyable, by the way. And that brings me to the next step, which is idea number 2, which is this idea that you want to be eating from field to table, 1 to 2 steps maximum. Now, you might not understand exactly what I'm saying here, and so I'm going to explain, right? What happens is that most of the time, and it's very easy, processed foods are high caloric foods typically, right? They are not only unhealthy, they are not only going to zap you of your energy and your nutrients and your well-being, but they are going to help you pile on weight. So when we're looking at an optimum fertility diet, right, we really are looking at a diet that is as basic and natural as possible. It should not compromise flavor, right? Food should be delicious, should be flavorful, should be, all of those things that, and mind you, sometimes your taste buds, because they're accustomed to processed foods, they're going to need a little bit of time to readjust. But again, like anything, it's about doing it, right? It's about being consistent with it. But the idea of eating from field to table is this. Let's say, for example, that I'll give corn, right? Corn, organic, please, because we don't want it to be GMO. But I'll give you corn as an example. And, from field to table, if you are to look at that food, if you take a corn cob, right, and you steam that and you put it on your plate, you are going to see very clearly that you recognize that food. You look at the corn, you can very much see it from the state that it is on your plate. You can almost see it, in the field. That's 1 step from field to table, okay? So that's eating 1 step from field to table. It's wherever it is that you get and prepare, that when it's on your plate, you can recognize it, okay? So that's 1 step. This 2 steps, once you actually go and you process that corn, let's say, for example, you actually cut the kernels and you put it on your plate, or you put it through a salad, or you eat it, you've processed it in some way. That's 2 steps from field to table, from field to plate, okay? Let's say that then you get that corn and you puree it, right? You might add some salt, you might add some, seasoning, whatever it is. It's pureed. But at that point, it's 3 steps from field to plate, okay? That is my cutoff, because there are many other steps that you could go from there. But my cutoff in terms of optimizing your health, your fertility, and of course, helping you to get to where you want to be in terms of your weight is 1, 2, 3. Ideally 1 to 2 steps from field to plate, but absolutely no more than 1 to 3 steps from field to plate. Because from there, you start to get, let's say the corn gets processed in such a way that it becomes flour, polenta, right? It's highly processed. You get it into a dried form, then you add water and you make whatever it is that you make with it. It's still corn, right? But you no longer recognize that corn from field to plate. Like, you cannot look at it and go, okay, well, this is corn, because you can't see polenta in the field, right? So that is where you really want to start thinking. Then there's yet another, like once you process it, you make the flour, what happens then? You add other things, ingredients, preservatives, food colorings, and whatever else. You mix it all through, you dry it up, you put it into a paste, dry it up and fry it, right? And you might have tortilla chips, right? That is a whole nother level. That's, a fifth step from, from a field to table or plate. So that's what we want to make sure of, is that when we're looking at food, we want to base meals on vegetables and protein wherever possible. There's been a lot of talk about veganism, vegetarianism. I addressed this again in great detail during the Fertility Challenge. Yes, you want to base your meals on vegetables, but you also need, for fertility, for egg quality and sperm quality, the building blocks of those cells is absolutely going to have to come out of complete amino acids. It's very difficult to get complete amino acids at the levels that you need for optimum fertility from simply eating plants or plant-derived foods. Hence, protein and vegetables is what I would recommend. You don't have to eat a lot of meat, but certainly, the size and the thickness of the palm of your hand at least once every couple of days with your vegetables, and, ideally daily if you can would be great. If you're vegetarian, you might need to have some tests to understand and ascertain your amino acid profile, and then be able to supplement specifically in a custom-based formula accordingly, right? So that's what we do for our patients in the clinic who are vegetarian, but it requires really getting very clear distinction around where we're at in terms of our amino acids and what it is that needs to be done about it. If you're eating meat, obviously it makes it a whole lot easier, but there's so much confusion out there about what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat and how to eat, and especially how to eat to optimize your fertility. And let me just tell you, it doesn't need to be any harder than what I've just described. You're basing your meals on vegetables and protein. You're eating 1 to 2, absolutely maximum 3 steps from field to plate, and you're adding some animal protein, eggs. Ideally, you're avoiding gluten and dairy, which we recommend for our patients because it makes a huge difference. We've seen this very clearly in practice. And of course, some animal protein that is going to support you. So, it might be eggs, might be some meat, might be some chicken, might be something else. And if you don't have those things, that's fine, but then get tested for your amino acid profile and get a custom formula made up specifically for you. In our clinic, again, that's exactly what we do. But it needs to be done to help you get the outcome that you absolutely want to have and that you deserve to have, right? And of course, to get results. So this is a crucial idea that you need to really embark upon with, really a little bit of planning, because it does take a little bit of extra, thinking to change this. But in the shop on naturalfertilitybreakthrough.com, we have meal plans. We have fertility diet meal plans that come out weekly that you can subscribe to for, I think it's $79 a year, right? Every single week you have 7 days of meal plans that you can utilize, that you can basically use, and that of course will enable you to know exactly what to eat and how. If you need further ideas, right? But I love Pinterest. I go on there and look for salads and look for vegetables and cook in the different ways and, whatever else. Whatever works for you is fine, right? Obviously, find a way that you are going to have the tools and skills and ability to make these adjustments and to make these changes, because in doing so, you are definitely going to get a very different result from what you have had so far in terms of your weight. And of course, you want to add your good fats in there as well, right? But be aware, when you're trying to lose weight, fats do have a whole lot of extra calories. So it's a really good idea as well to just be aware of how many calories. 2 tablespoons of olive oil is a lot of calories. It's more than 300, to 400 calories in those 2 tablespoons. To put it in perspective, a chocolate bar is generally around the same, right? different, of course, completely different calories, because health, one is much healthier than the other, but they still are calories nonetheless. So if we're looking at weight loss, that's going to make a big difference. Okay. So, but again, just by making that one small change, it's amazing what difference you can make overall. So just be really careful and really aware of that. Then, of course, the third idea, we actually ran a trial this year, at the beginning of this year or last year. I think it started last year actually, on intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding. And we found that people who were doing time-restricted feeding, i.e., you have a non-feeding window, and you have a feeding window, so you don't eat. So if you're pregnant, if you're currently going through an IVF cycle, if you are, trying to conceive in this cycle, you want to restrict your feeding window to no less than 12 hours. So you eat within a 12-hour period. If you're not trying to conceive, if you're preparing, if you're wanting to lose a bit of extra weight, if you're wanting to do, things to kind of speed up the way in which you go about this, and you're not in those three categories that I've just talked about, then you can actually decrease your feeding window quite substantially. This was one of the key points of success. In fact, I ran this trial for our patients in the clinic because I personally was getting so many positive benefits from fasting, right, and from time-restricted feeding. So you can actually, and I still continue doing it now, and I've been doing it now for about 2 years, and it's been amazing. It has been life-transforming in every way for me, right? Again, keep in mind, if you are pregnant, if you are trying to conceive, if you're going through IVF now, you want to make sure that your feeding window is no shorter than 12 hours. But for anyone else who's not in that situation, I mean, the longest non-feeding that I did, and mind you, this has to be done with supervision, right? You need medical supervision for this, or professional health supervision for this. Don't just go and do this crazily without actually having, practitioner support or supervision, because it's important that you understand exactly what it is that you're doing and how to do this in your specific situation, especially if you have concomitant issues like diabetes, insulin resistance, and that could be other issues that are present there that would also need to stop or adjust or vary the way in which you're doing your reduced windows. But it's very reasonable to do a 16-8 window, where literally you're eating only for an 8-hour period, which typically means that you will have 2 meals in a day as opposed to 3 meals in a day. You definitely don't want to be having any more than 3 meals in a day. That's your 12 window. 2 meals in a day is about a 16-8, so 16 hours of non-feeding, which looks like, you finish your dinner at 7 p.m. and then you go and you eat again at around lunchtime, right? The one other critical thing, and we saw this to be so beneficial for our patients in the trial last year, was to make sure that there was a cutoff, that after 7 p.m. there was no more eating of any kind, right? And consuming calories of any kind. So water's fine, herbal teas are fine, but definitely not with milk, and really doing that cutoff at 7 p.m, nothing else. So that meant that you had to reorganize your whole life and your whole lifestyle to fit that in, right? Where that was the end of the feeding time, and then whatever happened from there, like that was the one thing. Like if there is a gold nugget in this whole thing, right? Time restricted feeding with a 7 p.m. kind of limit of feeding time, life transforming for results. Okay. Now, Instagram, for anyone who's watching me on there, you need to know you only have 2 more minutes here. It will cut off after that, and I will still be just finishing off the live in the Facebook page. So absolutely jump on the Facebook page. Gabriela Rosa Fertility is the page that you're looking for, and you'll be able to continue watching this talk, or you can go back to the replay, of course, on the Facebook page, whatever suits you, but just letting you know that this is going to disconnect, and you're probably going to be left wondering, but why did this happen? That's why. It only allows me to talk for 60 minutes. That's why whenever, I'm doing this talk, I try my best to keep it under 50 minutes. I never succeed. I think I actually succeeded one time. And so, that's essentially what you need to be aware about. But time restricted feeding is going to be a very big secret weapon, I like to call it, on this journey. It makes a huge difference. And we've seen this in terms of our patients who did the trial. It made an incredible difference. The results were really quite substantial and very enlightening. So it's and very safe. You know, like we didn't have any reports of issues with people doing this at all. We had about 265 patients who began the trial, and you know, pretty much the majority of people actually completed it. So really, it's something that I would highly recommend that you look further into. One of the ways in which you can look, don't actually have this program. We ended up creating a program out of it, and I'll be making it available. I haven't made it available. Actually, this talk made me think that you guys might want to have it available. In fact, let me know in the comments if you would like me to make it available, and I can consider that. But I'm thinking of doing it because it was such a beneficial step, you know, and some people lost like 20 plus, 30 plus kilos in the 6-month time that we were actually doing this trial, and we're able to maintain it. We're able to keep it off. So it's really quite an amazing strategy that will definitely help you. It takes practice and it takes, you know, training in doing so. But I would also argue that as much as you want to ensure that you're doing the very best that you can, 10% for the soul. So figure out in a week, how many meals do you have? Figure out what is 10%. Typically, just spoiler alert here, it's 1 to 2 meals maximum in a week that you actually are having something that is a bit more, you know, kind of on the naughty side than you would otherwise, right? You certainly don't want to go crazy on the weekends because that's never going to help you. I still maintain, like for me, what my schedule is I go through the entire week. I do mostly 1 meal a day. On the weekend, I do 2 meals a day. And for me, that works, right? And also, I'm no longer trying to conceive. So you need to take that into consideration and really take into consideration what I said before. If you are, where it is that you need to basically be making those adjustments. But the program, great, Brittany, thanks for letting me know. I'll make it available. We'll work on this over the next week or so and we'll see how it goes. But in terms of when we can make it available, the program is ready because like we ran it and we ran it as the trial. So it's ready. So I might definitely give you access to that because I think it will help a lot of people it's step by step, right? Guidance in terms of what it is that you need to do and how you can do it in order to make a change and in order to make a transformation in your particular situation. And then, of course, you have to be consistent, right? The one other thing that I find brilliant in terms of this is actually finding someone who's trying to achieve the same goal as you, right? And then partner up and go, okay, great, let's do this and we'll do this together. And then that way, and keeping that accountability, you know, like when I was going through this, last year, I literally had a buddy that we would connect with each other and just report on whether we kept our agreement of what it is that we had said that we were going to do for that 24 hours, right? And if we hadn't, there typically would be a consequence, right? And so whatever agreements that you make, the key is report back, like every 24 hours, you need to report to your buddy in terms of keeping the agreement. And there's no point in lying because if you lie, you're just not going to get your result. And I mean, who are you cheating then, right? So it's like, okay, didn't do great today, you know, whatever happened, just recommit for the next day. But what I found, and that was the really cool thing, what I found was that I didn't want to have to be the person to report to my buddy that I let the ball drop because that would not inspire that person to do what it is that she had agreed. And if it's okay for me to drop the ball, she would, you know, think that it's okay for her to drop the ball, and then her dropping the ball makes me feel less motivated, and then it's like no one's winning, right? So hugely a part of what kept me really focused on making sure that I achieved my outcome was the fact that I knew that I was going to have to report to my buddy the next day and I had to be integrous with myself, right? And that I needed to actually be able to report that, yes, I actually achieved my outcome and know that that was true, right? So that is such a powerful, don't underestimate the power of that because it makes a huge difference. There is a great book that I'm trying to remember the name of right now. In fact, Let me see quickly for you, because this book has some really great ideas as well in terms of keeping commitment. Yes, Indistractable. How to Control Your Attention. That's the name of the book. How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life, by Nur Yal. And it's available on Audible, of course. Audible books are the best. So, and by the way, I don't get paid to say any of these things. I just think that it's amazing. But Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. There's some really great strategies in that book, as well as there's another book as well that is pretty awesome that will certainly help with making sure that these habits, let me just find it, that these habits get not only implemented but followed through with. The other book is called Atomic Habits. We have a book club as part of the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program for our patients in the clinic. We have a book club, and a lot of these books we actually go through and we work on and, you know, visit and revisit many times. And it's an amazing, amazing part of making that transformation. I truly believe education and, you know, further, the input from outside has to be louder than the input from the inside in the beginning. Right, so that you can actually really make a difference and make a change, particularly when you've been ingrained in your habits for such a long time. So that's where books, buddy, support, you know, in every possible way is so incredibly helpful to get you started. So motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going, right? Setting up your life in a way that, you know, establishes a routine for you to just keep rinsing and repeating is literally what makes a difference. Like for me, you know, the buddy idea really helped greatly, but also and I did this actually in the food side of things, and I did this also in the exercise side of things. I didn't talk about exercise today, not because it's not important. You know, you need to be burning and using more calories than what you're consuming. So of course exercise is going to be important. But really the mindset piece, eating from field to table and making sure that you are doing the time restricted feeding as much as possible, you know, the longest window that you can, is going to be ideal. Because those things are the 20% of the effort that will give you 80% of your result. Yes, I would still recommend that you exercise. Yes, there are still a whole lot of other things that you can do that are going to support you. But if you did nothing else, right, you get your mindset right, the other pieces fall in place. Okay, so focus on that. Focus on getting great input, great support. You know, in our team, of course, you know, for our patients, they have all of the support that they need. So if somebody's trying to lose weight, they can have accountability sessions on a weekly basis if they want to. You know, so finding those extra pieces of support is going to be so crucial to helping you achieve your outcome once and for all. So I hope that helps. I hope that you guys have gotten something out of today. I was a little bit rusty today, you know, after not having done this for such a long time. It feels like forever. But I'm sure next week we're coming back with another Ask Gabriela Rosa Live, and we are talking about immunological infertility. So that's going to be something that if you have or know that you either have, you know, anything to do with your immune system that's stopping you from from getting pregnant or taking a healthy pregnancy to term, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about next week, and everything you need to know about how to address that. So make sure you join me, same time, same place. Also, a very quick brief announcement is the new book, my new book, Fertility Breakthrough, which you probably already know is out. But what you may not know is this. I did something a little bit crazy for our third print run. We were running out of books like left, right, and center. So for our third print run, I decided that, okay, you know, just go ahead and order 2,000 books and we'll just, you know, be done with it. We've already sold half of those, thankfully, because I found out that, you know, after I ordered it, of course, that we were going to need forklifts to be able to actually receive this order, and that it's multiple cubic meters in volume and a couple of tons of books in those 2,000 books. So I'm actually asking for your help that I can give you a free book. So we actually have room in our office to be able to walk around. Here's what I'm going to be doing. In fact, I've started doing this, and it's been really quite useful for you and for me. But basically, free book. All you need to do is cover postage and handling for, it's $9.95 Australian dollars, which is like £5 or £6 and about $7 US, anywhere in the world, right? And you get the book free. So what do you need to do? Well, you go to the website, thefertile.me. So that's thefertile.me/free book. And you use the code Rosa Baby, right? All capital. Rosa Baby, ROSA Baby. So use that code, and then whatever, like once you go into that page, use that code, and then you will get the book for $9.95, shipping anywhere around the world. Book completely free. It's not going to be signed, unfortunately, but definitely you will get the book free, delivered to you anywhere. They start to ship on the 15th of December. That's when we're expecting our book order. So just know that, but definitely something that you might want to look into, because yes, 1, you get a free book. 2, I actually get a passageway that I can walk through. So this is amazing. It's a win-win for all concerned. So if you want a book, go to thefertile.me/free book, use the code RosaBaby, and that's what you need to do. And finally, we take on patients on board of our program that we truly believe we can help. And in order to be able to understand and ascertain that, I do a fertility assessment of every couple who may be interested. So if you have a situation where you've been trying to conceive for over 2 years, or you've experienced miscarriages, or you have gone through multiple failed treatments that, you know, and feel like nothing has worked so far, and what else is there, it might be worthwhile having a chat with my team. So you will get in touch with one of my clinical assistants. If they feel that we can be of assistance, then we will have a conversation and figure out what to do moving on from there. So you can have a free chat, and you just organize it yourself by going to thefertile.me/chat, thefertile.me/chat. You have everything to gain. Basically, if I can't help, I will give you very specific recommendations as to what I think can. And that, again, is also going to help you be further forward on your journey, and certainly closer to your outcome than probably ever before. So I look forward to connecting with you next time. In the meantime, remember one very important thing. Only you can make the decision to transform your results. And you are more powerful than you will ever know. So just back yourself and get on with it. You've got this. Until next time, bye for now.